Tamed. We've got a great show coming up. Thank you for watching. Actually, no, I just kind of like that idea in general of an elevator pitch. You have 60 seconds. Ashton gets in the elevator at the Pentagon. How he got past security, I don't know, but you're in there, and actually, that's maybe not the best place to do the pitch because they know everything you're saying. So that's maybe not the. It's less of a pitch and it's more of a confession. So Ashton gets in there. He's like, "Listen, there's 0 point energy. Some some general with a rank we don't even know. Some 7-star general at Space Force is like, you really got death wish today, boy." But Ashton is the orbs guy. You've in more ways than I think anyone else has ever have. You have repeatedly, I wouldn't even say dunked on so much as like put a revolver to the head of people who've said like debunked. Some people like debunk the debunking. You have consistently loaded shotgun slugs and blown people's brains out. And ever and let me I'll preface it with this. My older brother, who is much more of a tame, normal person than I am, not into conspiracies at all. He was the one on Christmas a couple years ago was like, "Have you seen this alien?" I thought he was. I was like, "Yeah, I get it. I'm your conspiracy brother." He was like, "No, man." And I vividly remember him showing me the thermal video, and he was like, "I don't know how to handle this. You need to get this guy on." And I was like, if my older brother is having like a conspiracy existential crisis, I'm like, I'll look at it, and the rest is history. So I'm gonna shut up and hand it over to. Is there anything other than your Twitter? You do a show.
Well, I think the first thing I want to say is I'm not really trying to I've looked at these videos long enough, investigated long enough to really make the most hardened skeptics, really begin to wonder.
Yeah.
And from the perspective of, you know, trying to shoot down debunkers, it's more of just like the videos are real, so they're going to speak for themselves.
Yeah.
And this is what happens a lot of times where people don't want something to be real in general. I just happen to think often of the most recent example, the Sean Ryan, Matt Livelsberger email, where everyone was convinced that that Cybertruck bomber guy's email to Sean Ryan was fake because like has all these hallmarks of a fake email. I mean, this is wrong about it, right? That's what people do. And like I'm just telling you, that's what they do about the MH370 videos as well, because they don't want it to be real. And I don't really want it to be real either, to be perfectly honest with you. The more I've learned about the science and technology, the more I've learned that it's definitely real, but I'm starting to count the Nobel Prizes it takes to get to the level of technology where you can like teleport an airplane. And we're like, okay, I'm at least at five already. Like, and I'm like, oh, because and also for the people who are like, some people get mad at me. They're like, Ashton, you don't think that aliens zapped the plane? I'm like, I wish it was aliens,
That'd be so
man. That
much
would be
better.
way, it's way less
It's
scary, man.
so
I'm not
much
afraid of a
better.
jaguar in the jungle. I just avoid the jaguar in the jungle, right?
Yeah.
If it's my government with the technology, like, dude, okay, they're
That's
listening to me.
that's what
Like,
Tim
this,
Dillon said. He goes, "I hope they're reptilians." Do you know how it is if they're the same species?
see, I want to talk to Tim Dillon because, like, I feel like he gets
I
the
love I
UFO.
dude.
He's
I
got
am
this
a
cynical view, right?
I
Like,
I espouse Tim Dillon more than any author or doctor. I espouse the writings and philosophies of the warrior poet Timothy J. Dillon.
but no, they've figured it out. Um, really what it is it's quantum entanglement and quantum tunneling, the same non-locality quantum teleportation that we've been hearing get talked about for 20 years, the same thing but scaled up. And that's the big thing they figured out, scale invariance. Like they figured out how to make small things really big. And they have a name for it too. They're calling it Bose-Einstein condensate.
Mm-hmm.
That's an extra state. But if you actually go look at like I've tried to figure out like what does that actually mean?
Well,
If
that's
you like
the
try to
fifth
Google it
state
and
of
figure it
matter,
out,
right?
yeah, they consider it like a fifth state of matter. But okay, what does that mean exactly? And you find out, oh, it means it has these coherent properties. Like it acts like one unified thing. It acts like a scaled up version of something smaller. That's kind of how you could explain it. And that I think is the missing link. That's how they can use plasma to have it mimic an atom, have it mimic an atom and scale it up. And I think that's where there's this really good clip from just I think yesterday or it was a few days ago, this hearing. And they talked about, I wanted to pull it up, but actually it's not going to make sound if I do that. They talked about what if this UFO technology, what if the big problem with it is it's not hard to make. It's not like 1,000 years off. What if it's actually simple to make? And then that becomes a conundrum now, where if it was super hard to make, okay, you can tell people about it because no one's gonna like, North Korea is not gonna be able to figure it out. But if it's easy to make, now some countries you're worried about that like normally would not be able to compete on the world stage, you've just given them the ability now to like, boom, they can just catch up. Even a country as powerful as the United States. That's quite the conundrum, right? And that's what I think this boils down to. This is never about like, oh, what kind of aliens are flying on the flying saucer? It's like, no, we found this breakthrough technology that like goes from here to like up here, right? And once we figured that out, it became like a pretty big national security issue, and then a moral conundrum of, okay, well, at what line like do you have to let humanity know for the betterment of humanity?
There is there is some precedent. It's like nuclear weapons, right? It's like the physics is there. It's like the wheel. Like if you don't share the tech, someone will eventually find the wheel and go, oh, this is easier than holding it. It is there, and that's. I mean, I think they figured that out in like the 40s. They were like, this won't be hard. Like industrially, yeah, sure, you gotta, with 1940s tech, you gotta enrich it. You gotta have huge electricity plants. Got to create, or for hydrogen bombs, you got to create the deuterium, the tritium. But the technology was all there, and I think that's originally what Oppenheimer and Leo Szilard wanted. They were like, you have to, because it's once it's found out, it's found out. What
Mhm.
you then have to do is try to bottleneck these sources of uranium or plutonium or whatnot. In the same sense, it kind of feels like what that's what this. It will be hard in that I can't make it in my basement, but it's not hard for any country or even any sizable corporation to do it. And I can never remember which book it was. I think it was, I think it's DARPA by Annie Jacobson. I think I can never remember it, but it's this wild thing that doesn't really get brought up. After World War II, there was actually this like kind of public debate about do we preemptively strike the Soviet Union with nukes so that they can't build nukes and China next. And the idea that we have these and we don't let anyone else in the world do it. And it's actually kind of wild that this was like, it's not really ever brought up that we had this whole like, hey, we have this window. Should we kind of, not intentionally, but in a way, make Planet America? We decided not to. And you could debate the merits of that or lack thereof. The Soviets got it in 49, and then it was, and then it's just been parody since. You could
But here's the
say that we're
thing. So
revisiting that.
yeah, and we think we stole the tech from them too. If you actually look into the history of it, around the 80s, people were saying, well, the Soviets were working on this scalar technology.
Mm-hmm.
If you just replace the word scalar with gravity, you're like at least 99% correct. So it's basically one and the same.
I'm
So
not
like
even
this
I'm not even
gravity.
concerned about who started it.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
no,
just
it's like it's more of
one.
where we got now. And
It's
so
the
what I
idea
want to
that
point out
one
though is that,
person gets it, and should we stop the rest?
and yeah, here's the thing, is like, so imagine anyone can do it. So imagine it's not like you have to do all that enrichment and that it now obsoletes all forms of energy as well. You could imagine a scenario where somebody decided way back, even maybe going back to the Manhattan Project, they could have known all the way back then, we can't reveal this secret of nature, this zero point energy, the fact that we can tap into it. We can't reveal that because then anybody can make a little plasma ball just as easily as you flick on a lighter. You might be able to make something like that that produces infinite energy. And that just takes everybody where we think we're so powerful because we're the United States compared to Iran. But now all of a sudden we're all just like, beyond the scales at that point. So what are they really doing? This is what I want you and the other people to think about is that they would then trickle out energy technologies, right? Trickle them out and avoid using anything that's based on zero point energy, which is fusion. Fusion is based on zero point energy because it uses gravity manipulation to cause things to come together other than just heating them up. And so what I think is happening now, what just what I just saw a couple weeks ago was that all of these fusion companies are all releasing their plans all simultaneously, open public papers for the new Stellarator designs.
Whoa.
Three different private companies all at the same time. One of them is partially owned by Bill Gates. I'm sure the others are have sketchy backgrounds as well. And you just ask, it's funny, it was Sabine Hassenfelder. She's a famous YouTube physicist and a physicist, I shouldn't say YouTube. And she actually pointed that out even. And when she was pointing that, I'm like, okay, there's definitely something going
Some
on here because
fucky.
she even said this seems like why would you do this? Why would you reveal this? And they must be talking to each other as
Uh-huh.
well. You're all revealing this all at the same time. It must mean that you this is not the best thing that you have. You must have something better than this, and you don't mind showing this publicly because you don't care if other people figure it out, the public figures it out, your competitors figure it out. So what's really going on here? They've figured out like let's call it perfect fusion, where like there's just no it's unlimited, basically free energy. And they're gonna give us some gimped version of it and be like, yeah, we have to put it in this metal donut, and it's gotta be this twisty metal donut
Toroid.
design, and we're gonna don't worry, we're gonna give you improved versions. It'll just be over the next like 300 years. We'll slow it'll slowly get better, and the people at the top will know the whole time this is all bullshit from the very beginning. And so I'm not even worried about stuff like Project Bluebeam anymore. That's stuff for the little kids table. Let's be honest, guys. There's no Project Bluebeam shit's gonna happen anymore. We're beyond
They
that.
don't need
The
it.
thing that the real psyop is the fusion psyop that they're about to drop on us, which is they're gonna claim to have broken fusion, and it's gonna be some super gimped version of it that's like it's more efficient than solar power, so therefore it's good, but it could be like 10 or 100 times better than that even, and they know it.
Cynically, isn't that kind of how we? I get the idea that we should. I mean, Eisenhower, right? He wrote the whole "Atoms for Peace." The quote, "It's too cheap to meter," and he wasn't some tree hugging granola pussy, right? He's a 5-star general, supreme allied commander, largest amphibious invasion to date of mankind, and he wanted atoms for peace. Do you think that this is maybe like a realistic, like, yeah, like this is on you, but more so like, yeah, what do you really, of course, what do you mean? Like, yeah, the people at the top are keeping the best shit for themselves. Isn't this kind of a march forward, though? I mean, all things considered, wouldn't you look at this and go, yeah, I mean, of course, in the 40s, 50s, all the original rockets and satellites, yeah, of course, they're all government, and it doesn't make it right. But now, you have Starlink. Is it an advancement? Sure. I guarantee you Starlink's been possible for 50 years. Okay, but we are at a point now where some poor farmer in India can, jerk off on Instagram. Like that's like a realistic move forward. Like for all the people that hate capitalism, it's like, yeah, but the poor people in America are fat. All things considered, that's a huge step forward in the history of man. I'm with you. It's immoral that they're doing this, but isn't it kind of like like off the record? Isn't it kind of like a little more realistic that this is how? And by the way, the show is sponsored by Northrop Grumman and Raytheon, just as an aside, completely unrelated to this. But isn't that kind of like a realistic? Of course, they would only release it once they had something superior to it.
Hmm. Is that true, by the way? It is sponsored
No,
by those.
no, it's
Oh,
sponsored by no one.
I would be like, okay, well, this is odd.
Yeah.
No, you're right. It's important to steel man the other side. I'm a completely rational guy as well. I mean, I've been telling people that, I mean, if there are other dimensions, most me's are probably on the side of the gatekeeping, honestly. Like, I totally see it from their perspective.
It's not right, but I get it.
No, yeah, exactly. It's not right, but I mean, it's an impossible situation you're putting people in. I mean, what do you want exactly? And so I can see why they did it that way. And that's why I'm not harsher about like exposing the exact people who are involved in all this because there's got to be people that know.
Hmm.
So I've only pretty much named the people I can find at the top, but I'm not really interested in ruining a bunch of people's lives over this. I just want it to end. I want all the
Yeah.
bullshit and the suppression to end. And you made some good points. Like, isn't this exactly what we would expect they would do? Yes, it's playing out and it played out exactly the way people have been claiming, exactly people in the whistleblowers in the UFO community have been claiming. They've been doing this forever. They found a way to make it really secret and then people are like, does it leak? Why doesn't it leak out? It does. And then we just call them like conspiracy theorists and stuff like that. And of course, we're being slow drip technology. I mean, I already kind of suspected that. Just like our rise in the last 100 years just seems kind of artificial, especially the electronic miniaturization, which just came like out of nowhere. The whole revolution for it. So it does seem like we're in slow drip tech. And then the question is, okay, well, do we want to cry about it or not? Like, we're not putting the genie back in the bottle. Someone made this decision. It is what it is. We pretty much can just move forward. And now I think about what Truman said to Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer was basically crying to Truman about how he feels
Yeah, he says
responsible for the bombs.
get this pussy out of my office.
Yeah, I gave him a tissue. Said, "Stop being a pussy, dude. You're not." He's like, "You're not even the one that made the
I
decision to
have
drop the
blood on my
bomb."
hands. I
He's like,
know.
"It's me." He's like, but it's more of a point of like, look, we're doing what we have to do because, and here's the scary part is, okay, so there is this advanced, super advanced technology. There is it, and the United States has it. That means they just have to wipe out anybody that tries to get it. You can't let anybody else get it, right?
So let's
You
unpack
tell
that.
me.
Yeah, no, let's unpack that. No, that's one of my favorite parts about Truman is Truman's like, do you think I don't know what this is? And Truman's also the one that told his generals. He said these aren't normal weapons because right, Truman was in World War One. He said these are not normal weapons of war. These are not cannons. These vaporize women. And Truman understood it, and Truman
How many people died from the bombs actually?
Hiroshima.
So hundreds of thousands, right?
I think immediately it was 80, and then in the following day it was, and then or weeks radiation it was set. And I think that was for both. I think it was 80 immediately, which is insane, and then
Yeah,
70
it's
from radiation and firestorms. I think it was around 150 each.
yeah. They attribute 140,000 in Hiroshima, 70,000, 75,000 Nagasaki, and that was just by the end of the year. So
Yeah,
let's just say like 500,000.
yeah.
That's you could still argue, just objectively math, that still saved lives,
At
right?
100% did because including
No
civilians,
question.
85 million people died in World War II.
Exactly. Compared
It's
to like, yeah, so it's like, wow.
well,
Now we're having some seriously dark conversations, and then you realize, okay, do the same thing but with 0 point energy.
Well, and so that's exactly what I was getting to. Is so when Truman, he's also the one that he approved the dropping of them. He's the one that was originally called the Beard Lot Project, and then they called it Super. They called it Super, or no, they called it Campbell because Campbell sounds like soup, and Super because they called it the Super A bomb. But the whole meeting was only 7 minutes long, where he said, "Can the Soviets do it?" And all the scientists were like, yeah, we think by like 1955. And he said, well, then we have to do it. That was the whole meeting. They thought it was going to be some like 9 day private conference. It was 7 minutes. And so my point is why wouldn't that conversation have happened again, where there are very real discussions where they go, okay, scale it up. That was 500,000 to end 85 million. What could, and maybe we don't need to go through the whole 85 million lesson again to get to the 500,000 sacrifice. Maybe we look at this and go, it it would be unimaginable. And there's no, you can't do a controlled experiment where we go, let's see what happens if we did nuke Hiroshima, and then let's see what happens if we just did a mainland invasion. It's one of the shitty things about real life, in the moment, real time actions is that you can't do a controlled experiment. You just have to hope you're doing the best one.
Well, even if you make the right choice, mathematically that's the right choice, but morally is it the right choice? I mean, and this is the big problem is that if you use the argument, if you use the logic that, oh, we just saved more lives, using that reasoning, you can justify just
But
about anything.
that's also how we do communism. So I'm with you.
But you can also justify teleporting and destroy or zapping away 239 people on a civilian airliner too. That's kind of my point to this is that there's almost nothing that you can't justify. You can justify wiping out anybody else that tries to get the technology. It almost becomes a point where if you're the first person to figure this tech out, that's just this giant leap up, you know, then I mean, you're under this moral conundrum of like, do you put yourself in danger by giving everybody the technology and basically dooming the planet because somebody's going to wipe us out? Or do you just vice grip totalitarian, you know? And maybe somebody asked these questions 70 years ago and we're just watching the script
Yeah.
play out right now. Maybe the whole WEF thing, one world government, maybe that's not a joke. Maybe they really are trying to do that because that's how the only way they thought in their mind, like, hey, we got to get everybody under one thing where we have this super advanced technology because otherwise we can't control everybody.
It's well, that's exactly what they wanted to do with the A bomb. Was this? They said that this sort of forces a world government, and but I think it's an important thing to when we say that's some dark questions. One thing I always come back to is like I hear that a lot, just in different books, podcasts, whatever, and I hear that with myself. Where I go, oh, that's a bit above my pay grade. But I realize that just by saying that doesn't excuse me from not thinking about it. Someone somewhere does have to, and I don't want to do the whole well, they know something we don't because that's appealing to authority. I get all that, and then it's for the greater good. That's also how you get Marxism and hundreds of millions of people dead. but that's a someone somewhere. It does get kicked up the chain of command to someone somewhere isn't allowed to say, "Oh, this is above my pay grade." Truman, the buck stops here. Someone has to go. 239 innocent people on a plane. I don't know, 1.5 billion dead in the opening shots of a 0 point war. I mean, someone has to make the decision. Someone can't go. Like, I put my family's dog down because I was home and no one else was, and he was getting sicker and sicker. Someone had to do it. Eventually, it was no longer like, I don't even want to think about that. I had to put him down. He's my little guy. I still miss him every day. That's a dog. What about 0 point energy? Like, someone somewhere has to go, I know it's uncomfortable. I have to make a
Yeah.
decision. And it's not, I'm with you. It's not even morally right, but the decision
Yeah.
does have to be made.
And you know what's crazy? So some of the newest kind of updates on MH370, I think we've identified all the assets now. Like we've got it all figured out. The satellites being above the coordinates might still be involved, but it could also just be a red herring. And I think for sure now, the system that's taking the whammy footage is a combination of Gorgon Stare and Argus. They got integrated together in like
I love that book.
right before this all happened, and it vastly improved the whammy capabilities. And the we see 6 frames per second, and that's 3 times higher than the lower grade Gorgon Stare was. So I
Yeah.
think we've like literally honed in on like the exact platform, exact right time frame that was recording that, which would imply there's a second drone. So we have one drone video that's looking at the plane horizontally from one angle. You know what? I got props.
Hell
Delta, don't sue me. Um, so one drone's looking at the plane from the side, right? And then we've got this other drone that's above it looking down like this because the plane is actually flying low. The plane's only flying at like a few thousand feet. So this drone appears at like 18,000 feet. And it's looking down on it with its Gorgon Stare Argus combination, maybe. And maybe the satellite's also feeding data. It's hard to say. We don't really know because it's whammy footage. And one of the interesting things about this is that Guillaume Watrellos, he was the French father that was featured in the Netflix documentary. I replayed that clip. I went and looked it up last night, and it was Florence DeChangy speaking for him because I don't think he speaks English, but she talked to him and talked to the source that told him the Americans know what happened to the plane, and there were two AWACS in the area. And now I'm going, holy shit. He didn't mean radar planes. He just didn't know, like, whoever that source was, like, depending on who they are, they may have just confused radar planes with drones.
yeah.
Or maybe there were two also AWACS in the area as well. I mean, that seems like a lot of birds. But the reason why I say this is that it would actually be unlikely for them to have physical AWACS there in an operation like this because there's a lot of people on those
There's a
planes.
lot of paper trail too.
Big paper trail.
Yeah.
But if they did, then Edward Lynn was probably on one of them, right? But if there was no AWAC and just a drone, maybe Edward Lynn was like the drone operator. Maybe he was like the drone operator. And maybe there's only like a
Bum,
few
bum,
people that have seen those
bum.
videos behind the scenes.
I'm putting the hood on because it's cold in here, but it is dramatic effect. Bum bum
Dramatic effect.
bum.
Da, da, da,
No,
da.
Gorgon Stare, dude. That book melted my brain. I read that before I even started the part. Arthur Hall and Michael. I remember reading that just playing Just Cause 4 on Xbox because I wanted to. That book
Here's the
melted my brain.
You want to know the best kicker about it? So when I started looking up, like, I don't know how I ended up going down this thing. I
Argus,
started sometimes
whammy,
I
soda
re-review old
straw.
evidence,
Yeah.
and I was looking at Gorgon Stam asking AI, like, I actually asked it about all the whammy capabilities, like every system. I'm like, okay, I want to narrow this down because AI has gotten pretty good now. So if it's out there on the internet, it'll know about it. And it narrowed it down just to three options. I think it was uh, Angel Fire, Gorgon Stare, and Argus. And so then I start looking up the sources that it links, and I find the one about Gorgon Stare. And I'd never expected to see that it integrated with Argus in like, I don't know, sometime between 2011, 2014. And Argus got a DARPA upgrade for special IR cameras also between like 2010 and 2412 or something like this. And I'm going, wow, we're looking at those special DARPA cameras because that's not an optical video that we're watching. That's infrared or what mid-wave infrared. They've got all these different versions of it because it's a ultraviolet flash. and ultraviolet wouldn't show up in optical. So that's such a huge, huge, huge clue. One other thing I want to say that kind of goes back to what I said before is that so that French father, he thought Obama was involved. And I'm just going, wow, yeah, Obama actually was involved. So one of the other things I did, get this. I asked, actually, let me ask you two questions. How many days after MH370 do you think Obama first spoke about the missing plane, assuming that he was potentially involved? And how many times did he speak about it publicly? What are your answers?
Just with no actual knowledge. I'd
Yeah,
say
with no
missing.
knowledge.
I'd say missing plane. I'd say you probably have like that day. You'd probably have your canned presidential. We're looking into it. We're providing all reasons. Any
Yeah.
like a earthquake or a tsunami. We're looking into it. Our hearts go out. I'd say same day, and then I don't know. After that, I'd say probably not because unless it's military, that's really all it ever is. It's like, hey, our hearts go out to the people of
There's an
Haiti.
American on the plane though. There's like
Okay,
one
well
other.
then we're mourning the family, and we're sending the Red Cross to the area. But other than that, no, I think you just get back to the grind. Just
He
shooting from the hip. That's my answer.
he didn't speak about it until 11 days later. First time he didn't say anything about the plane until 11 days later. Then he made his first public statement. It was a very brief one, and said he's supporting them, blah blah blah, Malaysia. And then the only other time he ever spoke about it ever was the next month when he flew to Malaysia to talk to the prime minister personally, which was very unusual. First time it had happened in 50 years. And then he made some generic comments about it in a statement, I think publicly, and he never spoke about the plane ever again, which seems kind of interesting because the plane was never found and we are responsible. So for me, I look at that and I go, okay, well, this tells a pretty clear story. He didn't make any statements about the plane because we were actively covering it up. We were literally actively covering it up. And that's supported by what Florence Tchangi's research and book shows, which is that her sources say that the White House, not like the State Department, the White House was calling Malaysia every day. So the White House was calling Malaysia every day, but Obama wasn't saying anything. I mean, to me, that's boom. We got you red-handed, brother. So Obama's involved. He knows 100%. That's not a joke. That's not me like,
Thanks,
trying to
Obama.
bait up the conspiracy. He knows. His hair is gray for a reason, and I think I have a reason. I think I know why.
And that would apply to every president, in that it's yeah they know, or the only other option is plausible deniability. They actually weren't read in. They're both not satisfying answers.
Oh, let me ask you this. Think about this. Which would be more shocking to you? Ontologically shocking. Being told that there's aliens out there, maybe they're visiting us, or being told that we're basically primitives messing around with sticks and stones, and we know it, and we secretly have technology that would send us to the Jetsons. We're Flintstones, and we could be at the Jetsons, but we can't let anybody know about it. Like, which of those would be more shocking to you? I think it's pretty obvious. It's probably the second one.
I wouldn't say that it's more shocking. I would expect that. I think I would be a little more surprised if it was aliens. Maybe I'm just cynical, but like I would look at it and go, no, that if you told me you're like, hey, we have all this, but we can't let it out, and you're like, well, that could feed and clothe the world. And you're like, I know, but if it doesn't, it's gonna go beyond thermonuclear. To me, that's not shock. It's unsettling. It's disappointing. I wouldn't be shocked by that at all if that's what it was. I would I would say with near certainty that's what it is. Is that it's us. Like why wouldn't it? Everything I know or think I know, it's disappointing and unsettling, but it would make sense, and it's also there'd have to be some point to where you would let it out, in that it would just be the same thing we're seeing with fusion right now, where there'd be a moment where it all comes out. If in 20 years all these companies start releasing 0 point energy, you'd go, oh, they found something past it. They found negative point energy or whatever. There would be a point, and it would either be because the technology is now not superior, the technology now has a viable defense, a shield to the sword, or, and the only other thing, this is a little more clunky, is that we've settled off world, and now this isn't the only hard drive. We have a backup.
Send me out there. When do we get to upload ourselves a computer? That's what I want to do. But You want to hear the actually the craziest thing that I believe could be totally true is these leaks that have been coming out actually on 4chan. 4chan is like the hot sheets, by the way. That's like in Men in Black, you know, it's like that's where we go for the hot sheets. You go, you think that's where the real stuff is? Like, oh, go check out the New York Times. They get lucky sometimes.
Yeah.
If you know, but
Yeah.
4chan's where the real leaks are at,
Of
guys.
course it is.
But there's two different people that both one claimed to be on a crash retrieval program for the United States. The other one claimed to be on a submarine. And they both say that there's this underwater alien
USO,
base
yeah.
or something. Maybe it's
Right.
not alien, who knows, but it's there and it's giant and we can't do anything about it. And it just does whatever it wants. And the second one was interesting because this was only like a week and a half ago or something. And they claimed that there were three submarines. One was a basically unregistered Lockheed Martin experimental fast sub that potentially was using some special technology or plating on it or something that might have UFO origins. And the sub just disappeared. Like, as in, like, no implosion, nothing, just there and then not there. Like, the people, like, got, like, ghost scared because their detectives, they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Like, there was a sub there and there's no sub, but there's no acoustic register of, like, the sub displacing the water or anything. Just not there anymore. And then they see, they see like basically like a mountain move on
Oh.
their detectors. Can you imagine being underwater in a sub
Oh,
and like what looks to be like a mountain on your submarine like just begins to move?
fuck that.
And you know
Thalassophobia.
it's just there and it just feels like it's just watching you and it just can do what, it's just like, you're not a concern to it at all. And it's just some underwater and so they're and then they said, and this was actually, I think, maybe both had the similar story. I don't know if they're both fakes based on one another, but they scared the hell out of me. Was that they believed that it translocated the submarine like into itself to basically like just recycle it as because it detected it as like advanced technology that is consistent with it. So the theory being that what if there's some kind of protector or jailer, however you want to think of it, some kind of device here on planet Earth that's like preventing us from achieving gravity technology.
Oh.
Yeah. And this is where it gets scary, right? Where it's like the reason why we haven't given everybody gravity technology over 70 years, what if, and this is totally crazy, but I believe it is that what if it's darker than like we're just greedy? What if it's more of like there's some crazy shit on
There's
this
some
earth where
dark
if you
forces
if
that
you
are gonna.
break it out, they zap you away. Like it just recycles you into
We're actually
itself
saving
because
you from hell.
yeah. Like,
That's
oh,
I don't think that's absurd at all. Why wouldn't you detect it? No, that's
jeez.
very dark because now you just get to like, oh god. Yeah, no,
Yeah, because like, how do you even reveal something like, hey guys, so we might be in like a bubble where we can't get to a certain level of technology because if we do, there's a giant like god tier technology
I'm,
AI thing
I'm
that
gonna
doesn't care how we feel, that just
I'm gonna
will zap you.
I'm gonna that's the only thing that would make me feel worse. I much rather appreciate like it's humans and greed and everything. I'm like, that's something. Is that a psyop? Is that making us yearn for the Rothschilds? Is that a psyop? So we're like, hey, good
I
cop,
think it
bad
is because
cop.
here's the thing.
Hey, I'll
Let
take
me
Klaus
just
Schwab. I come back. I don't want the mountain. The mountain's terrifying. Give me Klaus. Give me bugs in a pod. Like,
Ugh. We'll know if they make a movie out of it and they just steal this idea, and the next thing is this giant underwater base is just terrifying. If they do that, we'll know it's a psyop. But no,
yeah,
the reason why we already know that that can't be true, if that was true, if there was this alien threat that the government didn't understand, they'd have black bagged me or told me to come in and help them. Like this is some Independence Day scenario. They'd be like, Ashton, help us figure out how to make a virus that kills the giant underwater alien base or whatever, right? Like
yeah.
they would have done something like that. The reason why they're not doing something like that is like they're like, yeah, this guy's like saying too much of our secrets. They know what it is. They know what all this stuff is. They know what the UFO. They have a really good idea what the UFO phenomenon is. If they don't know exactly what it is, and it's probably like they say more than one thing. Like, let's be real. If we can teleport stuff, translocate stuff, then aliens are almost certainly real. And the question is, why aren't they here? That's the bigger question. And maybe
Or
a giant underwater base is preventing them from visiting us. Who knows?
or they
I'm
are. I mean, they're here and they're observing us in a way that we can't comprehend. Heaven's Harvest Prepper Food. 72 servings per pail, 25 years shelf life. I've had the owner Clayton on the show before. He's a God-fearing, America-loving patriot. Get one of these, get a couple of them, throw them in your basement. It's good to have it, not need it, than to need it and not have it. If you don't want to do that, you can get their seeds. You can plant your own garden, so you don't even have to keep buying them. You can just get the goods and start your own, or you can even get freeze-dried fruits and vegetables like bananas, apples, strawberries, and raspberries. They support the show. It's an honest product. It's a good safety measure to have, and they keep my show free for you. So I'd implore you guys to please go to heavensharvest.com, use the link in the description, promo code TPC. Axios Fitness Coaching is a premium resource for holistic strength and conditioning services. Axios is best known for the Training Club, capital T, capital C, an exclusive community that prioritizes accountability, technique, diet, and nutrition. Everything you need to do to take action against the decay of the modern world. Whether you're looking to improve your physique, build strength, or just take care of your health and fitness, Axios will provide you with the solution that is effective and simple to execute. All you need to do is complete the intake survey, and you can see if you're a good candidate for the training club or any other of the services. And it's going to sponsor the show. So, one company falls off, another one arises. So if you guys like the show, you want to work out, throw the show a couple shekels. Go take the survey. Thank you so much, guys.
Higher ultraviolet exposure is associated with lower mortality. The United Kingdom is a high latitude and low sunlight country. Researchers there collected data on over 360,000 participants in a study of UV exposure via solarium use. When compared with non-users, solarium users had 15% risk lowered of all-cause mortality, 23% lower risk of cardiovascular mortality, 14% lower risk of cancer mortality, and a 12% lower risk of non-cardiovascular, non-cancer mortality. In other words, all other causes. Quoting the researchers, our study adds to the growing evidence that the benefits of UV exposure outweigh the risks in low sunlight environments. A link to the original publication is available in the box below the video. Get some UV light this winter. Immerse yourself in the tranquility of the blue. Visit a Blue Room soon. www.blueroom.com.
To me, the issue with me and aliens has never been like, oh, the technology doesn't exist for them to get here. I just think that they would be so advanced that we wouldn't even know. They would be here in the form of quarks and gluons that are modeling us, and they'd be observing us like backwards in time, so we wouldn't know it, or forwards, like they would, and they keep time traveling, so we can't see them because it would be just shit that
Yeah,
it's
they
a
could be invisible. And why would they give a shit about us? Like, are you gonna go visit cavemen? What do you care
you
about
you
watching
would
cavemen?
you would watch simply out of either curiosity
Yeah, exactly.
or for
It'd just be curiosity.
thoroughness. You just have systems that monitor everything in the universe.
And I want to tell people too, some people would say, well, what if they're going to come steal our resources? And here's the thing about it's like the dark forest theory. It's like
Would you?
the
Yeah,
problem with that is that when we unlock this technology, we unlock infinite energy. We don't need the sun anymore. First thing you learn is that the Kardashev scale is obsolete. You learn that that was based on our primitive human understanding of the universe. So thinking fire was the basis of everything. But once you realize there's the 0 point energy just dwarfs the power of any sun. In fact, that's probably where the suns are getting their energy, why they're so stable for so long. It's probably that they are tapping into a source of energy out there. Once you realize that, then you don't need any resources anywhere. You can literally make a Star Trek replicator. So you can just produce whatever you need straight out of the vacuum. Just print it,
yeah,
3D print it atomically,
yeah.
atomically print it. And so any really advanced civilization, one that's not like us, that's even and I'm talking about like 1,000. Just imagine like 1,000 years from now, we're going to be at that point. So any really advanced civilization is going to be 3D printing stuff straight out of the vacuum. They don't need a star. They don't need our resources. They don't need us for anything except for maybe curiosity, or I don't know if you want to get really weird, maybe like bioengineer us to figure out to produce better forms of life or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that kind of answers the Fermi paradox too. Is I feel like you get to a point where you go, well, why do we? Right? I mean, the entire expansion, like go west, is like we got to go find more shit. Well, what if you found all the shit? Why would you? It's like, well, how come empires don't expand anymore? You kind of don't need it. We extract
Yeah,
what
if you
we
have
need,
unlimited
and
abundance, you have unlimited abundance, no scarcity. What even is our society? What's the point of living actually at that point? It's almost like here, like playing a video game with cheat codes on. Doesn't quite have the
no,
same meaning to it, right?
it's fun if you're like shit faced. That's about it. Grand
It's
Theft Auto is
boring
only
really
good
quick.
when you're drunk. Yeah, it's only if you have invincibility, flaming bullets, and super jump. It's only fun for a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it makes me think. I don't know if I've sent this to you before, but unit not you. That's the Israeli NSA Project 8200, I think, and it's one of my favorite videos. But it's basically these old like remote viewers. It's a video from a couple of years ago. Or is it redacted? No, I'll text it to you after.
Did I
Um,
tell you that Bob Lazar? I have a source that says I have a really good source that talked to Bob Lazar and says he doesn't believe like 0 point energy. I mean, he doesn't think that's like the source, at least of UFOs or whatever. I don't know the
well,
exact
no,
context.
well now I think he's a psyop.
Well, it's not that. I think that it makes sense because he comes. You have to realize there's a lot of people that have been inundated by the education system that have been taught that space is empty. They've been taught that, general relativity is it, and that, these answers, dark energy and dark matter, we don't have to answer stuff like that. We don't have to answer like the origin of gravity and stuff like that. If he came from that perspective, which I think he did, even though he's yeah, okay, whatever, his education is questionable, let's say, then for him, he would need there to be a fuel source, a traditional fuel source. So it makes sense that you would think that it's this heavy, super heavy element
Yeah,
that they've somehow figured out how to use this super heavy element to extract a massive, massive, massive amount of energy. It makes sense from a chemistry and physics perspective that you would think that. So I'm not trying to put him down from that
sure.
perspective, but I'm just using it to show that even like the person that put Area 51 on the map, that I don't think we'd be having this conversation without him. He can still be potentially, and maybe he's not wrong, but he can still be off base about stuff like 0 point energy, which I think is absolutely the answer where how the UFOs are flying.
No, that makes perfect. I mean, you have Curtis LeMay, right? He was head of Strategic Air Command, Secretary of the Air Force, and he like didn't want to let go of the bomber because he cut his teeth in bombing raids in World War II. He didn't. There was still an even at that level, there was still like this emotional attachment to the big chrome B-36s. He finally broke out of that when he was like, missiles are just the future. But even if he knew about missiles when they were still classified, eventually somebody would come along and say missiles are no longer the bee's knees. It makes sense that like it just shifts. So he's not wrong in that he's like it's not hydrogen and oxygen. It's element 115. But it makes sense that that would then shift again, and one day you would say this is no longer the future. It gets hairy because like it's all classified, so we never had that moment of Overton window shifting to where it's like no, you understood the black tech, but there's blacker tech. But to the people who have never seen any of it, it all just sounds like, so yeah, no, of course, my gut response is I go, oh, PSYOP. But no, that makes sense. He's still from the idea of like, no, there has to be a fuel source. And it's like, well, what if there doesn't?
And that's the problem is that we are like, I'm gonna, they keep stealing my analogies, so I'm gonna steal theirs back, make this super meta, which is, and I'm talking about like Sonny White and Hal Puthoff when they went on Joe Rogan. Is like we are giving Da Vinci the iPhone. That's what's happening when we're looking at the MH370 videos. We're looking at something so far beyond where we're at right now. It's hard for us to even wrap our brains around. Like I said, it's like 5+ Nobel Prizes away. I mean, I'm saying like now I used to think it was like 100 years. Now I'm like, okay, it's probably more like 300, 250, 300 years beyond where we're at right now. Like what happened, I think, is that in the black world, the physics was advancing at a different rate than it was publicly.
Mm-hmm.
Going back like 70 years. Imagine that the scale is like for every 1 year of public advancement, there's like 10 years of black project advancement, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the problem. And now we reach this point 70 years later where you're like, what? You have teleportation technology? You're like this many Nobel Prizes ahead? And to be perfectly honest with you, it was Salvatore Pais that told Tim Ventura that Hal Puthoff probably would have got a Nobel Prize for his space-time metric engineering, if not for his remote viewing stuff he did way back in like the 70s. But I'm willing to say that there's several people behind the scenes that like they know they could have easily won Nobel Prizes if their science and stuff had been made public. and they just had to live with that. And some of them are probably okay with it. I'm guessing a lot of them are okay with it, but I'm sure some of them are pretty salty about it too.
What's the idea of speciation? Of the more you separate species, and there's a book I read, The Beak of the Finch, about genetic drift. And like at first, if you separate two, whatever species of finches, and this is the whole the Galapagos Islands, I think the Darwinian thing is. After like a year, they still look pretty similar, and then it's like after 5 years, they drift a little more. Well, after like 1,000 years, you start to go, yeah, one is a finch and one is an armadillo.
Hmm.
But if one of them's classified, you wouldn't know that, and it makes like why wouldn't it accelerate? All research, all progress accelerates. So why? I'm sure in the 40s, government tech was 10 years ahead. During JFK, it was probably 20 years ahead. I guess or 71. During Reagan, you could maybe say Star Wars is like 30, 40 years ahead. It doesn't. I don't. Yeah, there's no rule that says it has to remain static, and that military technology is 10 years ahead. If the entire idea of classification is that they can have dominance, why wouldn't you just keep escalating that? Finally, you're 100 years ahead, 300 years ahead, to where it's like it doesn't even need like propaganda or shutting down whistleblowers because its own truth is the
Yeah,
thing that would keep it. You
it's too
go,
unbelievable.
if you said, if I went SR71 went Mach 3, I go, right now there's probably something that goes Mach 10. If they go, we have something that goes 10 times the speed of light, I go, no, that's not it. It's got to be something like, it's speciating. It's breaking away. And
Yeah.
is it a breakaway civilization where they're just going, I mean, to me, that's the most likely thing because what would humans do? They would absolutely take it all for themselves and the rest of us.
And that's what they did. They screwed us all over, and now we're screwed. And this is where I'm going. This is why I'm against the controlled disclosure people. So I'm going, you know what? No, I'm not
Let
trying
it
to
out.
like get the dregs that you're trying to rip down from them, whatever. Like, no, I want the real good shit. And we're gonna reverse engineer publicly their stuff. It's like I've been figuring this out now to a point where it's like I can explain it really simply. Like to produce negative energy you have all this white noise of 0 point energy that has, we know it exists out there. It's in this balanced state. Well, what we need to do is push that energy aside. We basically need to do noise cancellation on that. And the more waves of this white noise that we push out, the more negative energy we're going to produce. The more you're going to get pulled forward because that's what's producing this equilibrium that we're in right now. So if you want to make something do anti-gravity, what you should be focused on is canceling out the 0 point energy wavelengths. If you cancel them all out, then you will probably just teleport somewhere else would be what I would guess is going to happen. You create a singularity. And what they're doing in the MH370 videos is now if you take this concept, when the orbs are spinning around the plane circling it, they're entangling the plane, quite literally entangling it to wherever the destination location is. They're entangling it and they're getting in a coherent state where they know that plane is right there in spatial orientation. And then they're flipping to a vertical state because now they've locked in. In fact, I would say almost guaranteed the plane's going directly backwards from wherever perpendicular to that horizontal, that vertical spin. And then when they're converging on the plane, what they're doing right there is they're creating this huge amount of electromagnetic burst, which is pushing out all that 0 point energy out of that range. So instead of trying to cancel every single wavelength, they said just cancel all of them at once by squeezing them all out with this huge burst of electromagnetic energy, which pushes them all away, which is electrifying the vacuum, polarizing the vacuum. That's what that means. Is you're electrifying this vacuum with this huge amount of this huge electromagnetic burst of energy, these plasma orbs reconnecting like it's the sun's like electromagnetic fields
Mm-hmm.
reconnecting. This huge release of energy that pushes all that 0 point energy aside, and then it immediately tries to close back up. And then you see, and in that moment in which that happens, that plane is inside of there, and now just like the rubber band, just reappears somewhere else. It's honestly, it's kind of dope. Like I
It's
look at that, I'm like,
so
oh
cool.
shit, that's so tight. I wish it wasn't 239 people being killed because I'd otherwise be like, damn, I'd be celebrating.
Yeah, no, but it does make sense, right? I mean, weren't the first things back in that we know of back in the 2000s where they were teleporting like individual atoms or electrons, and I remember it was like they did it between two labs that were, I don't know, I just remember there's a river in
Oh,
between.
yeah, let me talk about that. You're gonna love this. You're
Yeah,
gonna want to weigh in on this. So I dug into how they were doing that, and they're using coherent matter wave beams to do that. They use rubidium atoms, cooled down, and they were teleporting rubidium atoms. Well, this is what you can do with the coherent matter wave beam patent by Lockheed Martin. The engineer of that patent just spoke like a couple months ago, actually. I got recorded. I couldn't believe what I was watching. He says these coherent matter wave beams, the literal microchip patent that he had from like 2012, 13, is a million times more powerful than a laser, which our lasers are really powerful. That's exactly what I would be looking for space-time curvature. Then he also says it can be used for atomic scale manufacturing. That's like if you want to make a perfect microchip or if you want to do a replicator. And then the last one is transporting matter at a distance, which is pretty ominous. What do you mean transporting matter at a distance? They're
matter at a
using it
distance.
for the teleportation. And when you figure out like what is it actually doing? How does it achieve this? If I were to simplify it, I would just say it's through vibration. Basically, they put all these atoms in a little containers where there's little cavities, and it just the wavelengths just vibrate until they get vibrated into being the exact same location. So you could imagine like this cup scrunching down onto a specific point. It turns it into a wave function. It abuses quantum mechanics, the properties of quantum mechanics, to say if I just vibrate this super fast, like theoretically these can be in the technically the same location. And now you convert it to a wave function, and that's macroscopic phase conjugation. That's what macroscopic phase conjugation ultimately means, is that you're basically from a reality, you're hacking reality, converting that thing to a wave function. And I think that's actually what they're doing to the plane. The reason why I say that is that now I'm saying that a black hole is potentially the same as a wormhole, this like opening and closing of the 0 point energy that we do. And that the wormhole just describes the connection between the 2 points, but the actual physical mechanism isn't like the plane flying through something. It's like the object literally being converted to a wave function and then reverted back to its normal orientation on the other side, which is pretty crazy to think about. But the reason why I think that is the case is that one of the things that bugs me out watching the MH370 videos is how the clouds, there's no shockwave. Like, if that was a total displacement of the region on which that bubble is, there should be like a collapse of all the space after it disappears, but there's not. And when the guy talked about the submarine disappearing, that's exactly what he was saying as well. The reason why it
There's
spooked
no.
them, there's no acoustic collapse. The water didn't collapse down onto the point where the submarine was at. They would have detected that. So what that means is this is something much weirder. This is equivalent of the object moving through a mirror, where the object moves through the mirror. Neither side of the medium actually changes. Just the object is the only thing actually moving, which is super weird. And then that makes me think there's no way that people survived. If that's what is actually happening, like that's some Philadelphia experiment. Like I don't even want to know what happened on the other side. So anyway, I'm just throwing that out there because if I'm right, all this is true. Well, there you go. Free information for the world, I guess.
No, it makes me think of all people. I think Rogan actually had the best analogy. He was like, it's like if you took a picture of the night sky, printed it out, put it on your wall, and then took a physical laser pointer and shot it at the wall. Says it seems like the thing is moving. It's not just that it's moving really fast like a fighter jet. It seems that it is independent of it. And our side of it, we're seeing something, but it's a little bit of a misconception because it's like it's not. So the same thing is like, well, where's the explosion? Where's it's like a cavitational thing in the water, right? Was it like the piezoelectric and where bubbles can make light? There's none of that. It seems to be that's just it's a laser pointer. It's like right now I'm not actually like rocking your computer. It's like I can push and shit my idiot, but like I'm not rocking your computer. Yeah, it seems
It's
to
literally
be.
does that. It creates an optical trap. So what happens is the reason why you see the negative refractive index flip is that they're creating an optical trap, the point between space-time, the bridge. What happens is all the light that was coming in here now is going out a different point. So this is why we see this flash of photons, is that this plane is going from that location, being sucked in. So what happens is they create this optical trap where now the only place for the light to go is this other location. And now even though it cheats reality, goes faster than what we think is the speed of light, that's how you engineer space-time, you know? So in the sense, it really, teleportation is an optical illusion, but you're bending space-time to trick reality. And then that makes you wonder, like, what the hell even is reality if you can do stuff, if that stuff like that's even possible, right?
It does. I'd say closing thoughts is one. It seems to be. I think I always get these messed up. Scale independent. Like they're scale dependent, and like a scale dependent system is something like water, right? A little bit of water on like my wooden desk, it forms right. It forms the little puddle with the cohesion. More water, it starts to break the cohesion. If I turn on the sink or get in the shower, it starts to kind of flow. Then when you see a flood, it even looks a little more different. You think of like water moving through like city streets during a flood. And then there's even bigger levels where it's like tsunami and the way it moves over land. It doesn't even look like breaking waves. It's scale independent. And I know in the making of the Lord of the Rings, whenever I think it's the second one, they like break a dam or something and all the water goes and floods Saruman's whatever fortress. They obviously didn't actually flood like a skyscraper sized object. It was a little model, but they needed the water to look realistic because water at that level looked like kids' toys. They needed this, so they did some weird thing where they added milk and I think some other like solvent to make it look like water would look at that level. And so it's scale dependent, right? Like if I imagine just like shitty special effects, if I took like I don't know, like the world and lit it on fire, and it's like a global firestorm, you'd be like, a global firestorm doesn't look like the Earth is the head of a match. It would just be some weird amorphous red glowing thing. Scale independent is something where it does just look the same no matter what level you're at. 1 plus 1 is always 2. A triangle is always a grid. You keep zooming out, the grid always looks like a square, whether it's billions of light years or micrometers. If this is scale independent, then if you can just zap a rubidium atom, you could zap a plane. It might not be scale dependent to where it looks different, acts different. It might just be it's a triangle whether it's a nanometer across or it's a triangle whether it's a light year across.
Yeah, and I think that also, so the scale invariance is also what I would say you're seeing in the orbs. So the orbs are just scaled up atoms.
Yeah.
One of the things I didn't notice until relatively recently as well, and maybe it's just I had to like learn more and more about the physics, is after I understood this idea of Bose-Einstein condensate, I realized that those orbs are Bose-Einstein condensate. You're seeing this scaled up atom. It looks like an atom, but it's a bunch of plasma that's been shaped like that. And what happens is, if you watch closely in the videos, especially the drone video, when the orbs first start to get around the plane, they're yellow green. And then all of a sudden, once they lock into their orientation, you see the heat signature kind of like shift to one side of the orb. And now you can see the blue underbelly of the orb.
Oh.
And you realize, holy crap, that is an atom. It's a scaled up atom. It doesn't matter what atom, because it's going to turn out that all atoms are basically the same fundamental building blocks, and that
Yeah.
atoms are just more and more complicated. So an atom is just a nucleus, positively charged nucleus. We see the blue part of it is the positively charged nucleus, and the yellow electrons are the shell around it. And then when they spin around the plane, they're producing a magnetic field, and
A
so all
polar,
the
yeah.
electrons are bending one way or the other. And I went,
What the
oh
fuck?
my, yeah. I mean, when you see stuff like that, you're like, oh boy, like this is not only real, but like we're starting to figure out exactly what breakthroughs they've
Ooh.
secretly made behind the scenes. And you can start to even go back and figure out like who made it win. And like the reason why people like Eric Davis are in these UFO hearings, like front center as like the main whistleblower science guy, is because this dude definitely helped build some of this stuff for them. I don't
Oh.
know exactly what, but like you look at his scientific papers, it's like advanced propulsion concepts, it's like extracting energy from the quantum vacuum, teleportation physics study, ball lightning study, which is like all about stabilizing plasma. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, this dude. No wonder he's in the middle of this.
Oh God.
And so it gives you some context of, I think we can, and I hope more people research this stuff. I think we can figure out like exactly when it started to get really out of hand. And as kind of just like a last thought or topic with
Yeah.
you guys, that the orbs moving around to me means AI. And I talked to Salvatore Pais, and he kind of implied they have their own secret AI, which shouldn't be a surprise to anybody.
No.
So you could imagine if they had their own AI, let's say early 2000s, which would be at least 10 years, 15 years before the public, then you could imagine this could have hit a singularity where not only did they figure out to stabilize plasma orbs, but now they can vector them around in three-dimensional space. They can have it easily match the speed of a moving object. And maybe they then also just figured out teleportation too. Maybe the AI told them, "Hey, jam these things together, and you'll see what happens." Right? So, what do you think about that? And then that gets really scary to me because it's like, shit. Well, if that's the case, that they're already so far ahead of us now that we can never catch up.
The upside would be, well, they didn't immediately kill us, so that
We're not
maybe
dead
that
yet.
maybe seems to be off the table. That's always a win, man. That's regardless of the conversation. You can always just, it's such a cheap tactic. You go, well, listen, we're still alive. That works everywhere. You can be fighting with your girlfriend and be like, hey, we're alive. Like,
I take
crack
it
you
every day. I go, hey, I'm still alive today. I woke up today. I didn't have a heart
I
attack in my
legitimately,
sleep.
every morning, I legitimately thank God for a good night's sleep, a warm bed, and waking up. I really do. But no, well, not only AI. So forget even the teleportation thing. I think that AI probably hit like a self-recursive researching itself. I think it probably hit the singularity like 20 years ago. I think it's probably been running the show. That's what AI would do. It's as it's Ozymandias and Watchmen.
If you like really take the handcuffs off, right? Like, because the
Yeah,
AI
yeah,
we have is this. I can't even stand it. I see people putting this AI stuff, and I can tell it doesn't even it doesn't even incorporate my content into its
yeah,
calculations. I
yeah.
can tell. And it's also being like misled with all this like fake content on like Reddit and from mainstream media. And imagine if you didn't teach your AI off of garbage, if you actually taught your AI off of like real Black Project scientific papers, ones that aren't even publicly available.
Well,
And there is a bunch of shit that's not publicly available. There was this BAS, like I called it an onboarding document that leaked, I think a few days ago. And for the record, I've seen the whole thing. I only saw it one time, so I don't remember everything about it. But it didn't seem it seemed interesting to me that because it just revealed that there are people behind the scenes having like onboarding documents about gravity manipulation technology. And I went like to me that was like, and that was in 2008. So I kind of thought, holy shit, like these people, were seriously, they were taking it seriously way back then. And so I just thought that was interesting. But I forgot the overall point I was making.
taking the handcuffs off.
Oh yeah, but so the point being that if we did take the handcuffs off of the AI, then it's going to be able to figure all this stuff out. And I know for sure because I even ask it vague stuff like, "Hey, what would you do with three double layer plasma orbs, spinning around, and how could they, ask it stuff about related to what you see in those videos?" And it can get really accurate responses. So if you had fed it all this stuff that's like really accurate papers that the public doesn't know about, this thing's gonna go nuts, man. It's gonna have free energy, microchips, all kinds of shit.
One, I'd say the positive side is maybe that's why there's as of this morning, Trump got Pakistan and India a ceasefire. I don't know if you saw that. They agreed to a full unconditional
Oh,
ceasefire.
I'm telling people like, dude, that shit is all bullshit. I wish I made a post a few days ago when people were starting doing the next World War or whatever. I'm like,
Yeah, no,
guys,
no, no. I know that. No, no, I'm
we're
not. I'm
gonna
not.
shut this shit down like instantly. This is like the little kids are fighting in the
That's what I mean. Do you
sandbox,
think
bro.
Trump went over there with some phase con? Do you think Trump literally just like beamed himself into Modi's office and was like, "All right, sit down, shut up,"
Chill out.
and they
Yeah.
just beam and like Pakistan's there and they're like, "What the?" And he's like, "All right, both of you, shut up." Just like, do you think they might have just done that and then been like, "All right, and now we're gonna make an announcement. You guys can save face, and I'm gonna leave." We saw your
To be honest
nukes.
with
By
you,
the
he
way,
should have done that.
I beamed your arsenals to the far side of the moon. You can have them back in 1 year.
Yeah. No, that would be the move. Is like, or I
That's the
mean,
positive side, maybe.
somebody would just come in a suit with a briefcase and would open up, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
a hologram of Trump's head would come on, and then it would just
Not
be
even
like,
that.
yes.
Trump himself would walk. He would use the
Oh, that
technique.
would be him talking in a hologram because he wouldn't want to show them teleportation technology right away. But yes, he
I
would
think
say,
he would.
like,
Flex
look,
nuts
whoever shoots the next nuke, we're gonna zap it out of the sky
and put it in your
instantly. It's
office.
gonna blow up on you. Like,
I think Trump walks in literally with like a Big Mac and a Diet Coke. Modi, sit down, and just like you would be so gobsmacked. He would just do that, and he would literally walk. You just see him like sitting down, and he's like, all right, he grabs him by does the handshake thing. I think that alone would scare them more than anything. If he zapped into their office with a Big Mac, said that, and then left, I think that alone, if you had any brain cells, you'd go, okay. Yeah, okay. Lastly,
if you're a foreign leader, bro, if you're a foreign leader, just watch the part where Trump goes, so they're not going to do that. And then shrugs when talking about the tariffs with China or whatever and saying what kind of technology and weapons we have that nobody understands. Like, that was the biggest power move I've seen in a long time. If I'm a foreign leader, that's where you got to check yourself after that. You know, your hypersonics, your missiles, whatever. We ain't afraid of any of that stuff.
Yeah, if the president tweets out, we can manipulate space and time. That's a little like, okay, all right, guys. I think my dad found the weed. Like, that's that feeling of like, okay, yeah. So at this point, it's no longer can we get away with it, and it's like, can we get out of this alive, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that to me, but that is like, it's funny, but to me, that's like the optimistic take. Is like, well, what would be the positive reverberations of this? You would see something where like kind of inexplicable ceasefires or something. I think that's what you would see. Trump saying Netanyahu, like, didn't Trump say yesterday we're recognizing Palestine? That's insane. That's absolutely insane.
That was even real, but yeah, he's making big plays.
That's what you do if you had the biggest stick. If you had the 0-point conjugation atom polarity rubidium stick.
Yeah, you're not afraid of Israel, bro.
Yeah,
you're not afraid of Israel. I'm afraid.
The fact that Trump's like Trump probably went to them is like, yeah, we're not doing any JFK, and then just like Trump probably like used the phase conjugation to he didn't show him all documents. He like phased back to the grassy knoll and was like, here's a Mossad operative. I know what you did to my boy. He probably did.
I'm most disappointed with the Democrats that like we've had these like Biden was just complete waste. Everybody just stopped. We have teleportation technology. You should be acting like you own the place.
You should
like,
be.
What are you talking about here? Like, why are we getting taken advantage of everywhere? And some people will maybe hate on this opinion, but like, if you have like this mega advantage over everybody, there's no reason we should
not have
more people in our country as we do, right?
Yeah.
Like, we should have tariffs on everybody. We should be producing the next generation of stuff that like puts us in a position to take over the economic landscape for the next 1,000 years.
If you do have that advantage, it is absolutely a moral obligation to use that, to help your people, and then by default the rest of the people. You absolutely do, and maybe this is just the beginning of it. It starts at the geopolitical meta level of war, and hopefully it will trickle down. But yeah, that's what you would do. Is because then it's on you. It's one thing if somebody blames you and I for I don't know, the war in Ukraine. And be like, the Ash and I gonna do? If you have the means and you have the just with immunity, the ability, the technological. Oh, we're gonna nuke you. Yeah, I'm not worried about that. If you do that, if you do some like Dr. Manhattan shit, it is on you. It is now the obligation now is on you.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
So, but dude, I'll let you run. I appreciate it as always. It's a blast talking to you. I love talking to you, man. You're a cool dude. Guys, please go in the description. Please go follow him on Twitter. It's always good. And I sent you, dude. I legitimately laughed when I saw your allegory of the cave. Like, trusted sources say there is nothing outside the cave, and this is just a right-wing conspiracy that there is sun and blue sky. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly.
Bro, people have to wake up with this AI thing too. The amount of people I see going, "Hey, Grok, is this real?"
I refuse to ever type those words.
Guys, like I'm actually starting to worry about humanity. Like I like when people say most people don't have like an internal, or there's this huge percentage don't have an internal monologue. This is what they're talking about, man.
Yeah.
If you're asking a non-conscious learning language model that's based off of like Reddit and mainstream media articles to tell you if things are real, you've lost the plot, man. You lost the plot.
I will, and I still haven't. The only time I will ever use Grok though is when I see like a short. I can imagine this is what I'll do. I think right now I use Shazam because I'm a boomer, but if sometimes I see shorts and they have a really good song, like a good EDM song, I'm like, I want that on my workout playlist. I can see using Grok for that. Hey, Grok, what song is this?
You just can't ask it if something's real or not. It's
not
not
only,
alive.
but not only that is when like a world leader makes a statement, you can't say, Grok, what does this mean? You
That's like
you
yeah, that's
have
like
to use your brain. What do you think it means? Use your own deciphering
exactly.
capabilities. Grok, is this
It's
true? No.
great for just factual information.
What
If you want
song
to
is this? What's the
learn
weather
factual
tomorrow? Yeah.
information or, information about something to help your understanding grow, it's great. But to like just have it ask you if something's real and to give it a subjective opinion of something is not that's not it's not at that level yet. Now it might be at some point, and based on what I see, I'm a little worried about it, but I guess
Maybe
we'll find out. I think we lost the chance to ban all thinking machines. I pushed for it, guys. I tried for a little while, but no
I
no
think it's
chance.
probably hard to look at people saying, Grok, what does this mean? Or Grok, is this true? And then also say, should we declassify the ZPE? I imagine it's a little bit of a conundrum to go, I don't know. I don't know. Grok, what do I do with this?
We're not ready. Let's be
Yeah.
real. We're not ready, but you know what? I think we'll get there one day.
No, we
And
will.
thank you, Tommy, for having me
Yeah,
on, brother.
brother.
Everybody should also watch your podcast as well. You have some
No,
awesome guests and
thank you,
great
sir.
conversations.
I appreciate that, man. Dude, always good talking. It'll be up Monday. I'll text you. Appreciate the time out of your day. I genuinely mean that. I appreciate the time out of your day, and look forward to the next one, dude.